The knock on my door was too heavy to be a neighbor. I opened it and my hand froze on the handle. 2 women stood on my porch, and neither of them looked like they belonged on this street, or on this planet. One was tall, with skin like polished steel, and eyes that caught the porch light in a strange metallic flash. The other was smaller, glowing faintly at the edges like she had swallowed a lamp, with eyes too large and too calm for comfort. Behind them, a small silver ball hovered in the air, blinking a soft red light at me like it was recording. "Daniel Whitfield," the tall one said. Not a question, a confirmation. "We have been assigned as your brides." I stood there blinking, waiting for a camera crew to jump out of the bushes. Nothing happened. The floating ball blinked again. "I think you have the wrong house," I said, already starting to close the door. The smaller woman stepped forward gently, raising a hand. "No mistake. Your name, your address, your genetic signature, all confirmed 3 times before we left our ship." "My what signature?" "Ship," the tall one repeated, as if that explained everything. I should have shut the door right then. Instead, my brain latched onto the word ship and refused to let go. I stepped back instead of forward, and that was enough invitation for them to walk inside like they owned the place. The tall one introduced herself as Vex. The smaller, warmer one was Io. They sat on my couch like it was a courtroom bench, back straight, eyes on me. "You are part of an old agreement," Io said. "Long before you were born, your world was quietly studied by an alliance of many peoples. We call it the Concord. Humans were cataloged, measured, and eventually approved for a program that matches individuals across species for partnership." "Partnership," I repeated. "Like marriage." "Like survival," Vex said flatly. I laughed, a short disbelieving sound. "I don't even have a dog. Nobody assigns me anything. I ignore my landlord's calls for 3 days at a time." Vex's eyes narrowed, studying me the way you'd study a bug that refused to die after you stepped on it. "Good. That is exactly the trait we are looking for." I opened my mouth to argue, and that was when the floating silver ball let out a sharp beep and dropped 4 inches in the air, spinning once before catching itself. Io's calm face tightened. "That is not normal." Vex was already on her feet, reaching for something clipped to her belt that looked like a smooth black stone. "Someone is jamming our signal." "Jamming what signal?" I said, my voice climbing an octave. "What is happening right now?" "There are others who do not approve of this assignment," Io said quickly, standing as well. "A faction within the Concord believes humans should not be included in the match program. They call it dangerous, destabilizing." "Dangerous how?" Vex's jaw was tight. "You will understand soon. For now, we need somewhere defensible." "Defensible? This is a rental apartment, not a bunker." The lights in my apartment flickered, once, twice, then steadied. Outside, a low hum rolled through the street, the kind of sound that vibrates in your chest before your ears even register it. I looked through the window and saw nothing unusual, just the same quiet street, the same parked cars, the same porch light across the road. But the hum kept building. "They found the signal trail faster than expected," Vex muttered, mostly to herself. "Who is they?" I asked, my heart picking up speed. "Enforcement drones," Io said, "sent to confirm whether the match assignment has been accepted or rejected. If they find us here unprotected, they will assume the worst and act accordingly." "Act accordingly meaning what exactly?" Neither of them answered, which was answer enough. I grabbed my jacket off the back of a chair without really deciding to, some old instinct kicking in that said moving was better than standing still. "Okay. Not that I have agreed to any of this, but if something dangerous is about to land on my street, I would like a say in what happens next." Vex looked at me with something close to approval. "You want a say? Good. Most candidates either freeze or start begging for us to leave. You are doing neither." "I don't know if that is a compliment." "It is," she said simply. The hum outside grew sharper, turning into a low mechanical whine. Through the window, 3 dark shapes descended out of the night sky, each about the size of a delivery van, moving in near silence except for that whine. They hovered above the street, red lights sweeping across parked cars, across mailboxes, across my building. "They are scanning for our signal," Io whispered. "We have maybe 2 minutes before they narrow it down to this address." "2 minutes to do what?" I asked. "I don't have a spaceship parked in my garage." Vex crouched by the window, watching the shapes without blinking. "There is a way to confuse their scan. It requires broadcasting a false signature strong enough to override ours." "And you have that kind of equipment just lying around?" "No," she said, "but your building might." I stared at her. "My building has a leaking roof and 1 working elevator." I doubt it has alien scan jamming equipment. Not alien equipment, EO said, eyes suddenly bright with an idea. Human equipment. Old radio signals, certain frequencies. They create enough interference to blur our trail if broadcast strong enough. Do you have anything that transmits? Anything at all? My mind raced through the junk in my apartment, half of it inherited from my grandfather, most of it never thrown away out of laziness rather than sentiment. Then it hit me. The building super has an old ham radio set up in the basement, I said. He used to talk to truckers on it before the internet ruined his hobby. It still works, I heard him bragging about it last month. Vex was already moving toward the door. Take us there. Now. We slipped out of my apartment and down the back stairwell, avoiding the front hallway windows where the drone light might catch movement. My heart hammered with every step, not just from fear but from the sheer impossibility of what was happening. 2 hours ago, my biggest concern had been a late electricity bill. Now I was sneaking through my own building to avoid alien enforcement drones with 2 women who claimed to be my assigned brides. The basement door was locked, of course it was locked, and for one panicked second I thought the whole plan would collapse right there. Then I remembered the loose panel beside the frame, a shortcut the super himself had shown me once during a flood scare. I pried it open, reached through, and flipped the latch from the inside. The ham radio sat in the corner under a layer of dust, cables running up through a hole in the wall to an antenna on the roof. EO knelt beside it immediately, fingers moving fast over the old dials with a confidence that surprised me. This will work, she said. But someone needs to keep transmitting continuously while I redirect the frequency pattern. If it stops even for a second, the interference collapses. I'll do it, I said, before I could think twice. Vex glanced at me, something unreadable crossing her face. You do not know how. Then teach me fast. She did. In under a minute I understood enough to hold the transmit key down and speak into the microphone, repeating a string of numbers IO fed me, over and over, my voice shaking at first and then steadying as the rhythm took over. Outside, faintly through the basement's small window, I could hear the drone whine grow louder, then waver, then grow confused, sweeping back and forth like a dog that had lost a scent. It's working, EO said, relief cracking through her calm voice. The false signature is spreading. They think the source moved 3 streets over. I kept transmitting anyway, not trusting the danger to actually be over, just because someone said so. Vex stood by the small window, watching the sky, her stone-like device gripped tightly in one hand, ready for anything. Minutes passed like hours. Finally the whine faded into the distance and did not return. Vex let out a breath I hadn't realized she was holding the whole time, her shoulders dropping just slightly. They are leaving, she said. For now. I finally released the transmit key, my hand cramped from gripping it so hard. For now, I repeated. That is not exactly comforting. It rarely is, Vex admitted, and for the first time since she'd knocked on my door, something like a smile touched the corner of her mouth. EO sat back against the wall, exhausted but smiling openly. You did well, Daniel. Better than well. Most candidates panic the first time enforcement drones appear. You kept transmitting even after Vex confirmed we were safe. That is precisely the trait the match algorithm searches for. Not calm in comfort, calm in danger. I wasn't calm, I said honestly. I was terrified the entire time. Being afraid and still acting is worth more than not being afraid at all, Vex said. Fear that does not stop you is the rarest thing we measure. I sat down heavily on an overturned bucket, my legs finally allowing themselves to shake now that the danger had passed. So that's it. That is what this whole assigned brides thing was really testing. Partly, EO said. The assignment brings us to your door. What happens after is never guaranteed. We do not force partnership, Daniel. We only introduce the possibility, then watch how it unfolds. And if I had panicked, or told you both to leave when you first arrived, then we would have left, Vex said simply. No harm, no argument. The Concord tests willingness, not obedience. I looked between them, still catching my breath, still half convinced I would wake up any minute in my own bed with a normal, boring day ahead of me. But the dust on my hands was real. The cramp in my fingers was real. The quiet after the danger was real. So what happens now? I asked. EO's glowing eyes softened. Now you decide, freely, whether you want to know us further. No assignment, no order, just a choice. I looked at Vex, steady and unreadable, and at Io, warm and hopeful, and thought about the last hour, the fear, the strange trust that had built itself brick by brick in the space of minutes. Ask me again tomorrow, I said. Tonight I just want to sit here and breathe. Vex actually laughed, a short surprised sound, like she hadn't expected humor to survive a night like this. Fair, she said. Tomorrow then. Outside, the street stayed quiet, the danger gone, at least for now, and somewhere deep down, underneath the exhaustion and the disbelief, I realized I was already looking forward to tomorrow.